Another fall Saturday on the quad brings out the tricks and the treats. For Alabama, an old pumpkin-colored nemesis comes to town, looking to kill the Tide's 11-game winning streak. Will Nick Saban get an early birthday present, or will it be a nightmare in T-Town? The third Saturday in October is here, and the only thing you should be scared of is changing the channel. Crimson Tide Kickoff starts right now.
The kid Lacey up the middle, big hole. He's going to go. Touchdown! Cooper behind the defense. He's got it. Throws it. It's picked off by Alabama. He's going to go. Touchdown! T.J. Yeldon. It's in and out of the hands and then intercepted by Sunseri. Touchdown! Amari Cooper stole it from the defensive back. Amari's got it. Amari's gone. Touchdown! Alabama! My goodness gracious!
Live from the campus of the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Kickoff, brought to you by Alpha Insurance.
In about 30 minutes, the top-ranked Alabama football team will come down the Walk of Champions. Fans already lined up, getting ready to greet them as they enter the arena, ready to face their old, longtime nemesis, the Tennessee Volunteers. And welcome in, everybody, to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris. What a great show we have in store for you today, live from the University of Alabama, brought to you by Alpha Insurance. Lots of guests and lots of fun planned for the pre-Halloween edition of CTKO. We'll also get you ready for the third Saturday in October, which is actually on the fourth Saturday this year. And we'll start things off with today's Bama headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama headlines.
And we start with news on the injury front. Coach Saban confirmed what we all feared on Monday. Junior safety Vinny Sunseri out of Northridge High School is out for the year after tearing ligaments in his knee. He had surgery earlier this week and will rehab for 4 months. He says he'll be back for spring. Like always, he expects the other guys like Landon Collins to step up and answer the challenge that presents itself because of his absence.
Well, you know, Landon's been a very good player for us in whatever role that we've asked him to play. You know, he's played money, he's played free safety, he's played strong safety. Strong safety is his natural position. When we had all of our players, he was Vinny's backup, so that's where he got the majority of his reps.
The Arkansas game also produced injuries for Bradley Silv and Alti Tenpenny. Silvey, who had been playing a valuable role at cornerback, has a high ankle sprain. Tenpenny has a case of turf toe. Both likely won't play this afternoon. And defensive end LaMichael Fanning is suspended indefinitely for a violation of team rules, and he will not dress this afternoon. And it wouldn't be a rivalry without stuff like this. Apparently, Alabama fans had a little fun with the rock on the Tennessee campus this week. Now, it wasn't exactly vandalism since it's used as a campus message board, but as a general rule, visitors are discouraged from painting on it, but that didn't stop some ambitious Alabama fans. Well, the good news is the game will be settled on the field as always, and that's where the Tide has been at its best, especially against the Vols, who haven't beaten Alabama since 2006. But as usual, it's a nameless, faceless opponent for the Crimson Tide. The focus has been on getting better, and even though the Vols haven't been close to the Tide in recent years, Alabama players still know this is a great rivalry.
This is a big rivalry for us and for the team, man, for the state of Alabama, especially because it's Tennessee. So, I mean, everybody knows what to expect. They don't like red and we don't like orange, and that's pretty much how the state is.
It's a great, rivalry game, a lot of tradition. So, it's always fun to play in a game like this.
And Tennessee is coming off its biggest win of the season. In fact, its biggest win in recent seasons against South Carolina. And they, too, understand the significance of playing the Crimson Tide. 6 losses in a row doesn't sit well with UT players, especially those that grew up in the state of Tennessee. And remember this rivalry being much more competitive than it is now.
I knew the importance of the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry before I even knew the difference between offense and defense. I think that if you come from Tennessee, you automatically know the importance of this game, whether you're a Tennessee fan or not. So it's a very important game. It means a lot to this program, it means a lot to these fans, and it's time to get back to where we need to be.
And here's a look at the tail of the tape. Most of the numbers favor Alabama. A good indicator, though, of the job that Butch Jones is doing in Knoxville. are how the penalties are way, way down for Tennessee. The Vols are one of the least penalized teams in the league. That shows discipline. They're also second in the league in turnover margin, another good indicator that they are on the way up. Well, the only time that we turn it over on CTKO is when we head to the quad. And we have a lot happening out there right now. Chelsea Barton and friends are standing by as we do something a little different, getting ready for Halloween. Chelsea?
News anchors with sharp objects. What could possibly go wrong? It's time for the CTKO Pumpkin Carving Contest.
Thanks, Gary. That's right. Once again, live out here on the University of Alabama's quad. And I know we've been talking all week about hating orange, but let's be honest, who could hate a good old-fashioned pumpkin carving contest? I've got some good company with me today. Our beautiful news director at WVUA, Lynn Brooks, and the also lovely 5 and 10 o'clock anchor, Daniel Sparkman. These two are going to go head-to-head in a pumpkin carving contest that we're going to update you guys on throughout the show. Lynn, how are you feeling?
You know what, Chelsea? I'm ready. I'm feeling strong. I've had my coffee. I'm loose. I've got some really bad-looking tools right there. If that's not a machete, I don't know what is. And we're going to duel it out here on the quad.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? Nothing better to do on an Alabama versus Tennessee day than to slice into something orange. You know, we're going to take out our anger today, okay?
Perfect, Lynn. Daniel, she sounds pretty intense.
Oh,
Are you
yeah.
going to match up?
I have one strategy, and that is to whoop Lynn Brooks. That's it. That's all I'm doing. I'm just going to go freehand style, carve into it, and I'm going to come out on top. That's all I know.
Now, did you guys kind of think about what you were going to do, or are you just winging it today?
Well, personally, I thought about it, and then I forgot my pattern at home, so I came here, and I just came up with a new one.
All right, Lynn.
I'm going to go ahead and give the people what they want, Chelsea. I've got an Alabama theme. We're going to have a gorgeous script A with football in the background. So we're going with a Roll Tide pumpkin all the way, baby.
All right, this should be interesting, folks. Let's take it on to Isaac Williams, who is going to update us with our first weather today.
And thank you, Chelsea. You know, if you look up in the dictionary for Saturday weather in Tuscaloosa, you're going to find this, folks. I love this weather, and apparently everybody else loving this weather as well. I want to take you to Home Team Interactive Radar because I just want to show you that nothing is going on. That is some good news. In a clean scan across the area, current temperatures right now in the mid to upper 50s across West Alabama, and that low dew point temperature making it feel fantastic out there, low humidity. Feeling great. Now, satellite and radar across the southeast, a little bit of rain shower activity over to our far west of the Mississippi River, but the good news is that will not be making its way into our area. That is some good news. A few high clouds building into the area now. I think a few more clouds building in later on in the day today. Now let's check your quick cast. 2 p.m. right before kickoff time at 2:30. We'll see a temperature in the mid-60s, right around 65 degrees. As the game ends, 58 degrees, and by the nighttime hour, 50 degrees for the evening temperature. I'll have another look at your SEC game day forecast in just a little bit. Gary?
Thank you so much, Isaac. I tell you what, when they drew up a football Saturday, this is what they had in mind. It is absolutely gorgeous. All right, guys, we'll be checking back in on that pumpkin carving contest throughout the show. I tell you, Lynn Brooks looks like she is bringing it. Game face is on. And coming up next, we're going to flash back to some of the great moments in the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry. You'll remember them down through the years, and we might even talk about the Rocky Block from a few years ago. And they're off on the quad. Pumpkins are being carved, and Crimson Tide Kickoff is off and running. We'll be coming back in just a minute, so make sure and stay with us. This show is Alabama Crimson and Tennessee Orange, and you see it all over campus. This is Crimson Tide Kickoff, brought to you by Alpha Insurance. You see our Bank of Tuscaloosa countdown clock. It won't be long before Alabama's #1 ranked football team comes walking down the Walk of Champions and into beautiful Bryant-Denny Stadium. Fans are already lining up, anticipating the Crimson Tide's arrival. We're just a little more than 2 hours from kickoff between Alabama and Tennessee. And welcome back, everybody, to Crimson Tide Kickoff. Joining us now is a man that, if you're an Alabama fan, needs no introduction, but we'll give him one anyway. Crimson Tide head softball coach Pat Murphy.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Always good to talk to you.
This is a great day, isn't it?
Just perfect. They drew it up perfect. Hey, we're going to talk some football in a moment, but you're the softball coach. I want to talk about where this program's at, and because of where it's at, the level of expectation now is so high that in some people's minds, last year was a little bit of a downer. Of course, 2 years ago, you won the national championship, you kicked down the wall, you finished at 60 wins. Last year, a good season, but not what you have come to expect from Alabama.
Yeah, and, you know, I think a little bit was we were inexperienced at some spots. We had some injuries, key injuries. Not a lot of people knew that Jackie was, you know, maybe a little, probably about 70% is all. And she gutted through it. I mean, we were one run away from going to the World Series again up in Tennessee. We had to play a great Tennessee team away, which we weren't used to playing as well. And Super Regionals in softball is very similar now to baseball, where that home team, it's a huge advantage. They were sold out every game. You know, the crowd is on top of you. And, you know, we didn't come up with that key hit. But one good thing about last year was, you know, we looked at, Chad Haney did me a favor, and he looked up all 9 Super Regionals. Alabama's the only school in Division I softball that has played in every Super Regional since it started, and which is a good thing.
Oh, yes.
You know, we've been there, you know, the top 16 the last 9 years. Jackie's a lot healthier this year. I think when you see Leslie Jury, you're going to be shocked.
Really?
The other day we scrimmaged under the lights, and a lot of the players said, is Leslie throwing harder than Jackie?
Wow.
And, you know, at the very end of the scrimmage, she popped one that probably was about 68, 69 miles an hour. Wow. Then we have a freshman named Sydney Littlejohn, who's about a 6'1" kid from Rusk, Texas, way east Texas, just a small town, and is a very good complement to the 2 that throw hard. She's more of a spin kid, has a good changeup. Her curveball is really nasty. And so people will be out on their front foot trying to hit her pitch compared to Jackie and Leslie where they're trying to time it. But the 3 of them, I think, are going to take us a long way this year.
You know, we saw it with Alabama football in 2009 and coming back in 2010 as the hunted. And Coach Saban's talked about it. It's hard to climb the mountain. It's tougher to stay there. The good news is for you, you've won a World Series, so you know what it takes. Then you fell a little bit short last year. Now you can kind of rally the troops again and go back to being the hunter just a little bit. But you have that World Series championship experience to go with it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, no matter how many times we said, be ready, you know, there's a big bullseye right there. You don't get that feeling until you get out to the games. And then you realize that, oh, my God, they really want to beat us.
That's right.
You know, they've circled Alabama on the schedule. They've done that for years, but like you said, last year was even bigger. And it was a huge target. And I don't think some of our kids were ready for that because the sophomores were in positions where they had to be the stud. The year before, they could sit and watch Cassie Riley-Boscia and Jennifer Fenton and Jazz Lunsford do the work. You know, they were really good teammates, but then when it came time to, I got to be the stud, it takes a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, just like when Vinny Cincinnati went down, I'm sure Saban's going to have an incredible replacement for him. But the thing that they're going to miss the most from Vinny is the leadership, the experience. You cannot put a price on it.
Right.
The kid is probably going to be a great athlete that takes the spot, but the experience and the leadership, you can't develop that overnight.
Speaking of Crimson Tide football, of course, this is a special day, a special rivalry. We've talked about how good the weather is. As a softball coach and as a coach at any sport, talk about the effect that having a football program like this has on all the other programs and your program in terms of recruiting, in terms of visibility, and how you use that to your advantage.
Well, I think every coach at Alabama would say, you know, football drives the bus. And we're very thankful that Nick is the bus driver. Right. He does an incredible job, and it just trickles down to every sport. You know, our kids, you know, we play in the spring, so we get to see what they get to do in the fall. I think it's the best advantage for us to play in the spring, to see what football does in the fall, and then we learn all the lessons that they do. You know, I watch every press conference, I read every press release, I read every article, I read, you know, I know what questions you asked him at a press conference. So we learn from that, and we'd be silly not to, because they're going to go through ups and downs, they're going to go through the adversity. But we need to learn from what they've done in the fall, just like soccer and volleyball, and then we take advantage of it in the spring.
And real quickly, you've got some more fall brawl action coming up this weekend.
Tomorrow, last doubleheader, 1 o'clock versus West Alabama. They're a Division II school, but they've done very well. They've been to, I think, the last 3 NCAA regionals, and credit them. Can't wait to play them. We've been trying to play them for years, and tomorrow at 1 o'clock should be a fun, great weather, too.
So check that out, a West Alabama rivalry. University of West Alabama coming in to take on the Crimson Tide. Thank you so much, Coach.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Look forward to getting back to Oklahoma City.
Thanks a lot, Gary.
All right. And right now we're going to go back out on the quad and check in with our pumpkin carvers. Chelsea Barton is standing by. Chelsea, how are our contestants coming along with their pumpkins?
Hey Gary, back live here. Let's check in with our pumpkin carvers. I think they might have underestimated this task. Is it harder than it looks, Lynn?
I got a hand cramp, and I've broken or bent every knife that I have. But
And some of mine.
I think my A is going to come out okay. I just have to stab it a little bit more.
Okay. Well, Daniel, how are things in your camp?
I forgot to stop cutting, so I kind of just have a big hole now.
Okay. Well, that's creative. It looks good.
So,
yeah.
That could be a good hat for the game.
It would be a good hat. Maybe. Yeah, that looks
well, you'd
great.
be able to see the candle, that's for sure.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, we're having lots of fun out here, and they are doing a great job. Busy bees working away. We'll be back in a little bit with more, and hopefully things will be looking a little better. Gary?
Thanks so much, Chelsea. Looking good. Coming up in a bit, we'll crown a winner in our pumpkin carving contest from the quad. It's getting competitive. We've got a lot more to come on CTKO, including a look at how much has changed since the last time the Vols topped the Tide. And up next, we're joined by Tennessee beat writer Wes Rucker, who will help us break down the game. Can Tennessee use the momentum from a big win to stem the tide? Crimson Tide Kickoff continues live from the campus of the University of Alabama. When we return, the countdown to kickoff is on. We're back after this. We're back on CTKO. What used to be one of the nation's premier rivalries has been one-sided lately. Alabama has won 6 in a row over Tennessee by an average margin of 23 points. Last year, Alabama won at Neyland Stadium 44-13. And here's a graphic that might even bring home the point further about what's happened since the last time Tennessee won in this series. iPhones didn't even exist. T.J. Yeldon was in the 6th grade. Hank Aaron was still the Major League Baseball home run king. Well, he still is in my book, but that's another story. Bob Barker was hosting the Price is Right. Gas was $1.91 per gallon. We long for that again. And the top movie was The Departed. Now joining me is someone that has covered the Vols through the good and the bad, Wes Rucker, senior writer at Go Vols 24/7. Thank you, Wes. Good to have you with us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Hey, let's start out by talking about Tennessee. For the first time in a long time, they come into this game actually riding a wave of momentum coming off what some people are calling a signature win for Butch Jones over South Carolina, 23-21, and certainly the biggest win in Tennessee football in the last several years.
Certainly. You know, Tennessee had kind of been the dog chasing the car for a while there, and the dog gets to the car, and you figure out, well, do I bark? Do I jump in the car? What do I do? They had lost 19 straight games to ranked opponents, and that South Carolina game was big because they had gotten to the table again. They were right there, and they actually made the plays this time to get over the hump. So certainly ahead of schedule for the Butch Jones era. A long way to go for them, but yes, last week was obviously a big step.
You know, Wes, there's been so much talk about what Derek Dooley didn't do or what he did wrong, but he did do some things well. One thing is, and even his predecessor a little bit, they recruited a heck of an offensive line, veteran guys, big guys, strong guys, a couple quality running backs. Defensively, maybe not a great overall defense depth-wise, but some guys that can make some plays. So it's not like Butch Jones went into a great program, but there was something to work with.
There was a little bit to work with. There was some depth, and there were a lot of high-character seniors on that team, a lot of guys who had been through a lot and kept pushing forward. You know, no one signs with Tennessee to go 5-7 or 6-6. You know, you don't. That never enters your mind when you sign with a place like Tennessee. But they are good on the offensive line. They've got at least 3 guys up there that Alabama did offer a couple years ago. Good on both lines of scrimmage. That's one area where they can usually hang with anyone. But overall, it's a depth issue that really hurts them. And I think in the second half of this game is when you'll really see that.
All right, let's talk Alabama from the Tennessee perspective. Certainly the Vols want to get this series back on level footing. No doubt Alabama's a better football team. If the Tide plays well, you would expect that Alabama would win. But how does Tennessee see this game today? I know they're coming to win the football game, but what do they have to do to maybe make this like 2009 and get it into the fourth quarter?
Well, Tennessee likes to play that up-tempo offense. You know, it's not Oregon paced quite, but it's in that conversation when it's going at its best. But I think Tennessee has to be careful with that today. I think Tennessee has to manage the football game, and there's always a script that underdogs need. And fortunately for Tennessee, a lot of those things Tennessee does well. Lack of turnovers, you know, taking care of the ball, don't get any penalties, especially pre-snap penalties, don't allow big plays, contain on defense, and play well on special teams, which is tough because Alabama's so phenomenal on special teams as well. I don't know if many people outside Tuscaloosa know just how good Alabama is on special teams. teams. But there's a script for underdogs, and they need to follow that script today if they want to hang around.
Yeah, getting behind Alabama is always troublesome, but particularly the fact that they don't turn it over a lot. They're good in the kicking game. It's just hard to come back on them. Any thought in your mind trying to get an extra possession, maybe through a trick play on offense or fake punt or onside kick or something like that? Will Butch Jones look at that and say, hey, we've just got to give ourselves more opportunity?
They do have a bag of tricks, and they're not afraid to go into that. They haven't gone into that bag of tricks as much as I thought they would this year. They've kind of been more competitive in a lot of these games, except for Oregon, than I thought that maybe a lot of people thought they would be. So they haven't really had the need to go do that. But at practice, yes, you can definitely see that they have a lot of those tricks, and they could use them today.
And real quickly, Wes, you mentioned Oregon. Obviously, Tennessee's a better football team since that time, but what did they learn from playing that game in that environment that might help them today?
Just that you have to persevere. You have to understand that the other team's going to make plays. If you've ever been in Bryant-Denny Stadium, you know Alabama's going to make big plays on offense, defense, special teams. You have to hang in there, and you can't let it get rolling downhill. You can't let it become an avalanche, because when it becomes an avalanche, that turns 17 to 3 into 45 to 3 in the snap of a finger.
Thank you, Wes.
No problem.
You can find him at the 24/7 site for Tennessee.
Yes, sir. GoVols247.com.
And he'll have you covered from the Tennessee perspective, and also, of course, Alabama fans find it interesting to see what the opponents are saying. Well, also coming up after the break, we'll unveil our tailgaters of the game, specifically one that was Rocky Block. He was not a tailgater. Terrence Cody was not, but he has been tailgating traffic, but he's here now, and we are going to be able to talk with the man that kept alive Alabama's national championship dreams in 2009. Stay with us, everybody.
Now, this week's Tailgaters of the Game, brought to you by Krispy Kreme Donuts and Dickey's Barbecue Pit.
Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm here on the quad with our tailgaters of the week for the Tennessee game, Ashley Gustin and Mark McKenzie, and you can't help but notice they're wearing different colors. Ashley, tell me about you guys' tailgate.
Well, we're here with EMJ Metals. They sponsor the tailgate, and we're just here with a friendly rivalry, bringing it all together for a good game and a good time.
This is always a thick rivalry, Alabama-Tennessee. I know it's in Tennessee Hate Week here in Tuscaloosa. Tell me a little bit about the rivalry from a Tennessee standpoint.
Well, it's more than a week at Tennessee. It's Alabama hate all year long. So we're here hoping for a good game. Major upset. Well, last week was good. We're on a roll. We'll see what happens.
I don't know about that. Regardless, it's my pleasure to present you guys with $85 of Dickey's Barbecue for your next tailgate, along with a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts each month for an entire year. Thank you, guys.
Wonderful. Roll Tide.
Go Vols!
Thanks, Gary. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. And look at this. Walk of Champions time at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's just about 2 hours to kick off, and that means the Alabama football team is making their way, or soon will be making their way, into Bryant-Denny Stadium as they try to make it 7 in a row over the Tennessee Volunteers. And speaking of trying to make it 7 in a row, that streak would not be alive if it weren't for this man sitting next to me. We told you Terrence Cody was in traffic. He's made it. Big T, good to have you, man.
How you doing?
Baltimore Ravens defensive lineman now, but we're going to look back first to a very memorable time in your life. And I don't know if people remember this. You were recruited by a number of schools, but when you came out of junior college, it wasn't like people were beating your door down to get you to sign. And when Alabama signed you, a lot of people were like, Terrence who? But you quickly made an impact in 2008. Just talk about what led you to Alabama in the first place.
Just coming to my first visit, I came to the Georgia game, and just that whole game from start to finish was just, I mean, it was just unbelievable because everybody was playing hard, everybody was giving it all, and it was just so competitive out there. And then that's what type of guy I am. I like to compete, and I like to work hard, and I just like the high competition level.
You know, you came here in 2008. You guys ran through the regular season undefeated, 12-0. Lose a heartbreaker in the fourth quarter in Florida. Go to the Sugar Bowl and lose to Utah. But I know you and we saw the block a while ago, and we see you working now with the Ravens. But talk about 2009, how motivated this team was to build off of 2008 and win it all.
We were real motivated. After that loss we took, those 2 losses we took in a row, was, we were disgusted because we felt like, we shouldn't have lost to either of those teams. So the whole year we hung up pictures around the whole complex, Florida winning the national championship and all that stuff, and them celebrating, and just having that around the whole complex just built up, not necessarily revenge, but just built up that fire in us just to get back to the same place and then go to the national championship where we were supposed to be that year before.
And you did. We saw the block earlier as we watched you work with the Ravens, and I'll ask you more about Baltimore in a moment, but maybe we can see the Rocky block again, because here you are, a big favorite over Tennessee. Lane Kiffin was their coach, but they kind of hung around. Even though you guys outplayed them, then something that never happened. Mark Ingram fumbled the football. They've got another shot. You've already had to block one field goal. They get it down in possession. Just talk about what you guys talked about prior to that kick. Did you say, hey, I can get it again? Was blocking the kick part of the plan?
It really wasn't. It was mostly that play was built for Julio to block the kick. And it was mainly for me and Marcel to get the big push in the inside, and Julio come up to the top. I mean, he come up behind us and jump as high as he can and go for the ball. But that whole play, I was going through my head, and if I block the first one, I can block the next one, and like the whole play, I was just picturing myself, getting a good jump on the ball and just bursting back there and jumping and blocking the field goal. Then, we lined up for the first one. They called the timeout, and we lined up again, and like the whole time I was just picturing the same moment. Like I had the same exact moment in my head, and he snapped the ball, and I had a great snap. I mean, I had a great jump, and I knocked the guy like 3 or 4 yards in the backfield and just stuck my arm out, and it just hit me right up under my arm. And I didn't know what it was at first until I heard the stadium just started screaming and shaking and stuff. And once I seen that, I just started running, and I threw my helmet off.
It was quite a moment. After that game, once the emotion wore down, did you guys say to yourselves then, hey, we're going to take this thing, we're going to win the national championship?
Oh yeah, most definitely. It took a game like that to kind of wake us up, not to let us get, woe to sleep from us, winning those games and getting comfortable about us being better than everybody. And that's what Coach Saban preached. He preaches that to us. He preached that to us every week, the whole year. And that game, it took that game for us to wake up and finally realize, we can't play around with guys, because we can lose any day in the SEC.
Well, you guys in 08 and 09 kind of started this run. And I know you got your own business to take care of with the Ravens, but this Alabama defense this year, it's kind of been a work in progress. They gave up 42 to A&M, but 26 points in the other 6 games combined. What have you seen from them? And based on what you've seen, is this an Alabama defense that can live up to the standards that you guys set?
I mean, they're young. They're young right now, and that's the main thing is them being young. So they have to. They're gonna make mistakes, and that's what practice is for. And watching film is go over those mistakes and try to correct those, or either try to change what you're doing wrong. But they have a lot of talent on that defense, and just those guys playing together and playing with one another, and I mean they can do unbelievable things. And right now they still trying to find themselves, but eventually, a couple more games, they're gonna start hitting them off.
And real quickly, raise your hands up toward the camera if you don't mind, T. Both of them. He's got a national championship ring on the left hand and a Super Bowl ring on the right hand. A national champion and a Super Bowl champion. Just real quickly, how sweet was that last year?
Oh man, there's no words to describe that, because not every day somebody win a national championship, then come into the league and win a Super Bowl. I mean, it's unbelievable. Me and Upshaw, we came up to each other after the game, was like, man, we did it, man. And it kind of felt the same to us, because we felt like we've been there before. Right. And like the preparation for the game and pre-game and all that stuff, it felt like we were playing the national championship again, but at another level. So it was just unbelievable just to be in that game.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Terrence.
No problem.
Mount Cody, and he's still making an impact in the National Football League. Thanks for the time. When we come back, we'll take that weekly trip into enemy territory with WVLT in Knoxville. What do they have to say about the Vols and the Tide? Plus, we'll crown a champion in the first annual WVUA pumpkin carving King or Queen contest. They're still working hard. It's next, so stay with us. And we're back on CTKO. This week was an important one. It was the first BCS rankings of the year coming out on Sunday, and to no one's surprise, Alabama was number 1, followed maybe a little bit surprisingly by Florida State. Oregon is 3rd. Ohio State and Missouri from the SEC East round out the top 5, but remember, there's still a lot of football to be played. Well, one of those games that's going to be played is right here in Tuscaloosa at 2:30. Alabama hopes to take care of business against Tennessee. We're only days away from Halloween, so we thought we'd have a little fun on the quad today and have our very first pumpkin carving contest. Chelsea Barton is standing by to crown a winner.
Hey,
Chelsea.
Gary. Well, it's the time we've all been waiting for. It's time for Lynn and Daniel to reveal their masterpieces. I don't have a drum to roll, but I
know
guess
about masterpiece.
I don't have a drum to roll, but I guess Lynn, ladies first.
All right. We have here, oh, wait a minute, finishing touches. Hang on.
Oh.
He's not quite dressed yet. You know, little matching never hurt anything. Can I get a roll tide?
Woo! Women always accessorize. Daniel, can you beat that?
Okay, she went pro Alabama. I went anti-Tennessee.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no doubt that they're both great pumpkins. I don't think that I could have carved
And
either
mine has a
one of
big
those.
stem on it, so I'm
Oh,
just saying.
okay.
And it's got a nice little top to it.
Stem envy. Yeah, I don't have a lot of stem.
Yeah, well, cover it up. There you go. That's what the hat's for.
I got a bald spot. That's why I wear the hat. Yeah.
Well, perfect. I can't choose, so I'm going to call in for some reinforcement. We have one of our staff members, Emily Forrester, on standby, who's going to help us declare a winner. Here she is. Emily, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I really like them both. I hate Tennessee, obviously, so I like the slash mark through the T, but, you know, the houndstooth hat, it's really hard to choose. I really like the houndstooth hat. I think I'm going to go with Lynn.
Oh, Lynn! We're ganging up on you, dude.
Oh, look, you made my pumpkin fall apart. Well, you know what? This is how many points that Tennessee's going to score. 0.
Yeah, 0. Okay, well, roll tide, Gary, back to you.
Roll tide.
Thanks, guys. Great fun out there. And Lynn, you're not done yet. We're going to have you over here with us here in just a few minutes. Well, it's time now for our weekly look under the helmet of the opponent. To do that, we called on WVLT in Knoxville for this week's version of Behind Enemy Lines.
Taking you where everyone else is too scared to go. Get ready to go behind enemy lines.
For the first time in his coaching career, Butch Jones will match wits with Nick Saban. Coach Jones more than held his own against the head football coach Steve Spurrier last weekend, with Tennessee pulling off a 23-21 upset of 11th ranked South Carolina. But Butch Jones knows last week isn't going to help him this Saturday.
You know, what we've done, that's in the past. You know, it's time to move on, and you have to rely on your maturity and your leadership. But our players understand now what's at stake. You know, if anything, you know, it's how do you handle success? You know, does it drive you to want more? Do you want to continue to get better and better and better? Or do you become complacent? You know, you're going on the road, hostile environment, #1 team in the country. It's going to take everything that we have.
For the Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Jeff Archer.
And good stuff there from Knoxville. And coming up next, we'll take a final look at today's game day forecast. Plus, we'll go around the SEC. It's a short trip this week with the big game in Columbia, Missouri. Can the Tigers stay undefeated against South Carolina? We'll preview that game when we return. More Crimson Tide Kickoff comes your way as we count you down to 1 o'clock on the program. And then, of course, the countdown to kickoff will continue. And it's a festive occasion when the Tide and the Vols get together. We've got it for you right here on Crimson Tide Kickoff.
What do you know? It's time for our weekly brain-busting crawl around campus. So get your thinking caps on for On-Campus Trivia.
Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Tommy Townsend out here on the campus of the University of Alabama. And the Crimson Tide hope to remain undefeated as they take on the Tennessee Volunteers this weekend. Currently, Alabama is a 28-point favorite in that game. Let's see if some UA students can answer some trivia questions about Tennessee football. How many times has Tennessee beaten Alabama in Bryant-Denny Stadium?
A lot. We can do more.
I have to go with 0.
Once?
I'm going to say 4.
4 is correct. What current NFL elite quarterback got their start at Tennessee?
No one that I care about.
They have a quarterback?
Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning.
That's correct. Peyton Manning of the Denver Broncos.
No, it wasn't Peyton Manning. I don't know, Tim Tebow? He's in the NFL, right?
Joe Namath.
Close. It was actually Peyton Manning.
Oh, so you were right.
Tim Tebow played for Florida and Joe Namath played for Alabama.
Joe Namath played for Alabama.
But I was right the first time.
Why is Tennessee called the Volunteer State?
Because no one actually pays to go to Tennessee.
Because they volunteer every year to come here and let us beat them.
From the War of 1812, many Tennessee residents volunteered for military service. Name some technology that didn't exist the last time Tennessee beat Alabama.
Technology. The candle, the wheel, pack animals.
The typewriter? I believe it was Steve Jobs, rest his soul, iPhone.
The cell phone.
That's close. It's actually the iPhone.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Thank you, Tommy. Great job. Great responses there. Really enjoyable. Well, it's time now to go around the SEC with many conference teams playing out-of-conference cupcakes. The only real meaningful game, in addition to Alabama-Tennessee, is South Carolina's trip to Columbia to face the 5th-ranked Missouri Tigers. South Carolina's hoping to have 2 quarterbacks healthy. Connor Shaw injured his shoulder in the Tennessee loss. Missouri, meanwhile, is up to 5th in the nation, and Coach Spurrier is doing his best to downplay the Gamecocks' relevancy.
They're a very good team. They're pumped up, and they're getting a lot of attention that they deserve. So we're not going to get much attention this week. Like I told the team, we're on TV, but the nation wants to watch Missouri. They don't want to watch us now after losing the game. But maybe we can go out there and show them something. Hopefully, that's what we'll try to do.
Here are the other conference games. Furman visits LSU. That's a sleeper. Idaho's at Ole Miss. Auburn hosts FAU. But there is one other conference versus conference matchup. Texas A&M currently leads Vanderbilt out in College Station. And let's check in one more time with Isaac Williams, who has a look at our forecast. Isaac, how are we looking for today?
We are looking fantastic. A little bit of cool feeling to there, but I'm sure nobody is complaining about that. We do have some rain showers well off to our west, but the good news is they're not going to be impacting us here. However, we are getting some serious blow-off from that rain shower activity from our west. I do think clouds will increase later on this afternoon and tonight, but again, rain holds off, and we could squeeze out a sprinkle for tomorrow, but nothing too major. Now let's check around the SEC's weather real fast. We'll check Auburn's conditions taking on Florida Atlantic. 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff, 53 degrees, falling into the upper 40s. Definitely want a jacket for that game. Again, Gary talked about the other big SEC showdown in Columbia, Missouri. South Carolina comes to town. 51 degrees for that kickoff temperature, falling into the low 40s, and they're going to have a little bit more of a wind factor there as well, so that is something you want to bundle up for as well. But the big game here in Tuscaloosa, Tennessee comes to town. We kick off in about an hour and a half. Tennessee coming to town, 65 degrees for the kickoff temperature, a mixture of sun and clouds. We're staying cool. We're falling into the upper 50s by the end of the game. I hope everybody can enjoy this, soak up this fall-like weather and bring home a win. Roll Tide. Gary, back to you.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Looking good for the ball game. Well, when we return to wrap up Crimson Tide Kickoff, we'll welcome a special guest picker who's actually doing some double duty today for CTKO. So she'll break down the games coming up in the SEC. We're still about an hour and a half before the kickoff between Alabama and Tennessee. We'll be back with the smashing ending to CTKO. So make sure and stay with us. The Bank of Tuscaloosa countdown to kickoff is on. And we're back here on our set at the University of Alabama Crimson Tide Kickoff. Lynn Brooks, news director of UAT, already kicked some rear end in the pumpkin carving contest.
I know. I'm
now
glistening after running across the quad.
So you've got your exercise already in, and
I got a victory.
You ready to pick some SEC football games?
I've already got a victory, so let's do it.
All right. I know as busy as you've been, you hadn't had any chance to check in on Vanderbilt and Texas A&M, even though they're already playing. Who are you picking?
I'm going Aggies 48-38.
All right. Furman at LSU.
Oh, I'm going Auburn 56-17.
Ole Miss coming off their big win over LSU, host Idaho.
Idaho 45-27. Ole Miss.
Okay, going with Ole Miss there. Yeah. A big one in Columbia. Missouri unbeaten taking on South Carolina.
I think Mizzou keeps rolling.
You do?
31-27.
All right. What about Auburn in Florida Atlantic tonight?
Auburn 56-17.
All right.
It is hard to pick Auburn, though.
And Tennessee and Alabama.
Alabama. Well, you know, I think Tennessee's playing it with a little bit more confidence. Maybe they really want to try to get a win. It's not going to happen today. They're facing a much more talented team, a team that's really rolling. And you know what I think about Tennessee, Gary?
Well, hang on. You're going to tell me. First of all, so touch the Alabama pumpkin.
Okay.
You're picking Alabama, right?
Yes.
Now show what
we're picking Alabama.
What's the score?
I'm going Bama. See, I had to think about this one for a while, but I'm going to say 38-13.
So you got them smashing Tennessee.
Absolutely just smashing the Vols.
Literally.
Yeah, literally smashing the Big Orange.
All right, let's see it.
So you know what we want to do? We're going to take Tennessee, and we're going to smash them. We're going to kick them. Smash them. Yeah. That's what Bama's going to do to Tennessee.
That's a preview of what's coming up at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Thanks to Lynn and our entire CTKO staff and guests as well. Remember, Sports Saturday tonight at 10:15. I'm Gary Harris. Roll Tide. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Roll Tide.